Democracy is considered the best system of government in Western countries today. The governments compete for the title of the most democratic country. Nevertheless, the number of democracies around the world is decreasing year by year. Is democracy just an ideal we strive for but can never reach? Let's find out together. If you enjoy our philosophy videos, give this one the thumbs up and let us know in the comments below what other topics you'd like to learn about. Democracy, in our contemporary understanding of it, emerged in ancient Greece. In Greek, demos, people, and kratos, power, rule. Therefore, democracy means the rule of the people. A democratic society governs collectively and makes decisions for the benefit of all citizens to achieve harmony and the collective good. Today, scholars suggest that some aspects of democracy have existed since the prehistoric period. For example, the elders made important decisions collectively. But the development of democracy was stalled by the growing economic and social inequality. Democracy was adopted as a government system in the Athenian polis for about 2 centuries, until approximately 121 BCE. The Athenian democracy is considered to be the earliest in the world. Thucydides, an ancient Greek historian, wrote that Athenians were never exposed to other political systems and created democracy to resist the power of the one over the many. All the decisions in Athens were made collectively. Each member of the assembly had to vote by raising their hands or by putting a pebble in an urn to ensure anonymity. The Athenian democracy had its ups and downs. It was often criticized by contemporaries such as Plato and Aristotle. It eventually fell, and the conflicts with the Spartans and Macedonians also contributed to that. In the Middle Ages, further development of democracy was stimulated by new judicial and religious theories. The modern period was perfect for democracy to prosper due to the growing population, which is essential for this governmental system. In 1930, a Spanish philosopher, José Ortega y Gasset, wrote, "The 2 factors that ensured a good standard of living in Europe were liberal democracy and technological advancement. The ordinary Europeans were no longer the victims of circumstances and could live comfortably. So, why couldn't the ancient Greeks see how great democracy was?" An ancient Greek philosopher, Plato, didn't care for democracy. In his work, The Republic, he mockingly argued that democracy only appeals to those who like all things colorful, such as carpets. Democracy emerges in societies where temperaments intertwine like carpet threads, but because people are different, those threads will intertwine at random, never making a proper carpet. Plato described democracy as a pleasant system, but he noted that it lacks proper rule and, therefore, order. In Plato's view, in a democracy, it isn't imperative to rule, even if one knows how, and it isn't imperative to conform. The most important thing is to tug this colorful carpet. That's why Plato was suspicious of the sophists, who could easily convince the people of anything. Moreover, in this view, a democrat doesn't value order. He either indulges himself in the music of the flutes or tortures himself with exercise and only drinks water. The day after, he is too lazy to do any of that. Plato argued that democracy proclaims utter disregard for the things we took so seriously when we were founding the city. Plato exposed what the Athenian democracy turned into and criticized the results of the good intention. Philosophy was always the foundation of the sciences: psychology, sociology, and political science. Even chemistry and physics emerged from the works of the great philosophers. Learning about the ideas of great thinkers can give one a deeper understanding of the world. We can help you to make the first steps towards studying philosophy. With our subscription, you can learn as much as you like for just $6.99 a month. Our courses are made by the same people who created this video. Art for Introvert isn't only a great YouTube channel, but also an educational platform. Aristotle considered democracy a deviation from the best government system, politeia. In his view, the collective good in a true democracy implies the freedom of the majority. The multitude should have authority, rather than those who are best and few in number. Aristotle thought democracy was the best among the worst compared to tyranny and oligarchy. Plato also believed that tyranny was worse than democracy. Another ancient Greek philosopher, Pythagoras, is believed to have said, "There are threats to humanity, materialism of the scientists, ignorance of priests, and the chaos of democracy." So, why do some people say that democracy is dangerous for the people? The former Prime Minister of Great Britain, Winston Churchill, seemed to agree with the ancient Greek philosophers. He famously said, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried." Indeed, while the Athenians were trying to reorganize and improve their democracy, They renounced it altogether. Can we consider this proof that democracy is impossible? When people say that democracy is impossible, they usually mean just one of its forms, direct democracy. It was this form of democracy that was practiced in ancient Greece. An example of contemporary direct democracy is Switzerland. In a direct democracy, anyone with the right to vote must participate in collective decision-making and hold responsibility for the outcomes of these decisions. Direct democracy is only possible in societies whose population does not exceed 10,000. Otherwise, chaos emerges and it paralyzes the system. As for the other types of democracy, diplomat and political philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville argued that the United States in the 19th century was a proper democratic country. He was impressed by how the interests of the different parts of the country were taken into account. There were independent media, and everyone had freedom of opportunity. However, he was also quite critical of the US. The spirit of gain is always eager, and the human mind, constantly diverted from the pleasures of the imagination and the labors of the intellect, is there swayed by no impulse but the pursuit of wealth. Almost 2 centuries after de Tocqueville, a renowned American philosopher, Richard Rorty, noted that democracy had long ago acquired 2 meanings. Firstly, democracy is a political system where the power is concentrated in the hands of elected officials. Secondly, democracy refers to a dream of the past. It's a hope and memory of an ideal where everyone has equal opportunities. Rorty disagrees with those who try to establish a philosophical foundation for the second definition of democracy. In his view, the history of the United States demonstrated that such things as a fair court and freedom of the press can help a country become more democratic. However, the attempt to achieve an ideal and give everyone equal opportunities was unsuccessful. The views about democracy changed significantly over time. For example, Aristotle considered election an instrument of oligarchy, whereas a draw, in his option, was a proper instrument of democracy. But in today's democracies, we only have elections. An election is one of the ways for us to exercise our freedom, and it is the main feature of a democratic system. Not so long ago, people fought for the right to vote and have at least some influence in decision-making. Still, in some countries, people can only dream of free elections. In many parts of the world, women are not allowed to vote. But what's happening in those countries where a democratic election is possible? Studies show that voter turnout declines every year. What about the wish to exercise our freedoms if people don't want to use their right to vote? It seems that the history of ancient Greece repeats itself. The democratic initiatives die out before they have a chance to develop. Democracy seems heavy and clumsy given the growing population. It cannot respond to the challenges of today. Perhaps it is possible to try and get closer to the democratic ideal, but making it a reality is a utopian idea. The most famous contemporary democracy is the United States. Abraham Lincoln proclaimed one of the most important democratic principles: a government of the people, by the people, for the people. However, he was the first Republican president who opposed the Democrats. Both Bush Sr. and Jr., as well as Donald Trump, were Republican presidents. Things were very different in Lincoln's time, however. The stance of the Democrats on slavery was very controversial. They wanted to consolidate the capital and decrease import taxes because their constituency included plantation owners and recent immigrants. The shift of the objectives in both parties happened only in the 1940s. Democrats turned out to be more liberal as they supported minorities in their fight for rights. But the Republicans became more conservative and remained quite indifferent to all these initiatives. It is difficult to devise a democratization plan and stick to it. Sometimes it is even impossible as the circumstances change all the time. But does that mean we shouldn't try? Donald Trump, who initially was a Democrat, later became a Republican. And even though so many celebrities and intellectuals spoke against his wall on the border with Mexico and threatened to leave the country, nevertheless, it didn't change much. Trump still remained in office. Do you think democracy is possible? Can we call it the best political system? Share your thoughts in the comments. A great number of philosophers were contemplating government systems. Among them were Plato, Hobbes, and Marx. We live in a world of ideas and concepts. To understand these ideas, you can start studying philosophy with our subscription and learn as much as you like for just $6.99 a month. The link is in the description below.